What makes the difference? Well, it is a fourth principle. It is our faith. It is that we believe. There's a fine distinction between trust and faith and believing. You have to believe. You have to believe in where God is taking you. Trust lets us set aside all that holds us back. Belief is what keeps us there when it's not exactly all that we envisioned it would be. Abram gets to Canaan. And what does the Scripture say about what he finds there? Abram traveled through the land as far as the site of the great tree of Moreh, and at that time the Canaanites were in the land. Trust lets us set aside everything to sacrifice what keeps us back. Belief is what keeps us there when the plan doesn't seem to be working out just right. Abraham shows up. And what does he see? Tents everywhere. God, this is the land you told me that you were going to give to me. This is where you asked me to come. God, did I miss something? Am I in the wrong spot? He travels the land, and the Scripture says, and the Canaanites were already there. Well, that's a fine how do you do. God moves me around the known world, calls me here to dwell in this land, and I can't even pitch a tent without running into somebody else. But did Abraham pack up and go home? Did he turn around and march backward? No. The Scripture says that he built an altar and he prayed. And when he got done meeting God there, he moved on. And yet again, he built another altar and he prayed some more. We have to believe. We have to believe. Trust sets us free from the past. Belief keeps us in the midst of those circumstances that aren't always what we had dreamed. How many of us would have let God have the what for? How many of us would have just given up? How many of us would have said, you know what, I must have misunderstood God? Kind of like the gentleman who saw in the clouds two letters. He believed them to be P and C. And so he quit farming and he went into ministry, and things weren't going exactly right. And one day another pastor asked him, he said, are you sure you didn't get confused? Maybe PC meant to just plant corn. Do we start finding excuses and other options? Or do we stand firm and believe that God has led me to this place, and it may not be all that I expected, but God is still here, and He will still work, and He will still do what He said He would do? Abram built altars, and he prayed. He exercised his belief. He exercised his faith. And then what does the Scripture say he did? Well, in verse 9, it says, then Abram set out and continued. He continued the journey. The last principle I want to offer to you folks is that you finally have to go. You have to keep going. Go, and then go again. When Abram got to where he was going, he didn't stop. He kept journeying. One translation says, and Abram journeyed on by stages. And isn't that what faith is about? Stages. Following after God, chasing after God comes in stages. We grow a little bit, we mature a little bit, and then we begin the process of listening again and responding and trusting and believing and going. And we grow and we mature, and then we start listening again, listening anew to the next stage, the next place, the next ministry. It's true for us as individuals, and folks, it's true for us as churches. And so my offering to you this morning is the challenge to chase after God, to follow after Him, to listen, to respond, to trust Him enough to meet your needs, to exercise belief and faith when all seems to be going in the wrong direction, and then to go yet again to the next place. Where is God taking you? I don't know. Your path is different than mine. We're not ants all in a line. My question is, are you willing to go? I close with this story. One gentleman's reflection on learning to follow God. At first I saw God as my observer, as my judge, keeping track of the things I did wrong so as to know whether I merited heaven or hell when I died. He was out there sort of like the president. I recognized his picture when I saw it, but I didn't really know him. Later on, I came to know God. It seemed as though life was rather like a bike ride at that time, but it was like a tandem bike. And I noticed that God was in the back, helping me pedal. I don't know just when it was that He suggested that we change places, but life hasn't been the same since. Life with God, that is. God makes life exciting. When He moved to the front and took the lead, it was all I could do to hang on. He knew delightful paths up mountains and through rocky places, and He took them at breakneck speed. Even though it looked like madness, all He said was, "Pedal." I was worried. I was anxious. I asked, "Where are you taking me?" He laughed, didn't really answer. I just learned to trust. Eventually, I forgot my boring life as I entered into this adventure. When I'd say, "I'm scared," He'd just lean back, touch my hand. He took me to people with gifts that I needed. They gave me their gifts to take on my journey, on our journey, God's and mine. And again, we would be off. Then He would say, "Give the gifts away. They're extra baggage. They're too much weight." And so I did to the people we met. And I found that in giving, I received. Our burden became light. At first, I did not trust Him to control my life. I thought He'd wreck. But He knows bike secrets. He knows how to make it lean to take sharp corners. He knows how to dodge large rocks and speed through the scariest of passages. And so I'm learning to shut up and pedal, even in the strangest places. I'm beginning to enjoy the view from the back and the cool breeze on my face that comes with having this constant companion. And when I'm not sure, and when I just think I can't do any more, He just smiles and says, "Pedal." I pray that you will desire to chase after God and to follow Him to new and exciting places. That you will listen, that you will respond, that you will trust, believe, and go wherever He asks you to pedal.